Welcome to the Radical Lifestyle Podcast, brought to you by Generation to Generation, where you will be inspired by the past, equipped for the present, and prepared for the future as we engage in conversations with people from around the world. Hello everyone, this is Andrew and Daphne from Generation to Generation, and our guest is Geoffrey. Michelle, for people that don't know who you are, can you just say a bit about where you're from and what you do?
Well, my name is Geoffrey, and I am from New Orleans, Louisiana. I have lived in Louisiana my whole life, never lived anywhere else. And I am a small group pastor at Celebration Church. And I also am the director of our small group ministry with our 8 different campuses. And so I serve in many roles and many capacities, as most people do, that serve in church life.
And if people want to maybe find out more about you or what Celebration's doing, where can they do that?
Our website, celebrationchurch.org. There are several Celebration churches, so you might want to even put in Celebration Church New Orleans to get to the right one. And my email address is on there. And also you can post my email address if anybody has any questions about. I love small group ministry and anything to do with that. That's my sweet spot.
Yeah, I'll put the link in the description. So people listening, you could go find the link in the description box.
So you said you were a small group pastor. Define that. What does it mean to be a small group pastor?
So at Celebration, we use the cell model of small groups. And so the cell model is they have multiple cells that meet, multiple groups that meet. And then over that, they have either section leaders or coaches that have a small number of those groups that they kind of oversee or give support and encouragement to. And then there's a small group pastor. And so the small group pastor gives oversight, direction, helps with strategy for the section leaders or coaches, and then for the cell groups themselves.
So for people who perhaps don't know, you slipped from one word to another. You said small group and then you said cell. Are they one and the same things, or have you got a prison ministry all of a sudden?
I know. Well, I always try to say small groups because we actually call them life groups. So I'm just impressed that I didn't throw in cell groups, life groups, and small groups all in the same paragraph of words.
And house groups,
And house groups, yes. Home groups, house groups. But we call them life groups. There's lots of different things that people call them. To me, the cell group is more about multiplication. Right. It's not just a regular small group where you can start a small group and have everyone meets and you can pick a time and start at a particular time. Cell groups literally don't end. They just keep going. They multiply, they grow, they build up leaders. And so to me, it's a little bit of a different look than just having small groups at our church.
Okay, so if anybody wants to know the difference, you can do a search probably on cell groups online and it will probably bring something up. So let's go back in time. How did you end up doing this? What was the path that led you to this?
Yeah, have you always been in ministry, or did you do something else before being in ministry?
I've served on the church staff for 9 years.
Right.
But before that, in 2001, I was a lost 25-year-old that grew up in church, but really stepped away. And in 2001, I got a 2x4 hit on the head from the Lord. And he said, "Young lady, that's enough." And I surrendered my life to him that day. The next week the next month, I found a small group that actually my sister Karen made me go to with her because she didn't want to go to somebody's house by herself. And so she said, you have to come with me to this group. And so went to the group, fell in love with the people. And they really are still some of the people that were in that first group with me are some of my best friends. 4 months later, started leading a group. When we went through Hurricane Katrina in 2005, it really broke up a lot of our groups and changed the way that we did groups. But I kept leading a group and was a section leader for groups. and eventually just worked my way into ministry. It was kind of like one of those things where the church had to hire me because I just wouldn't leave them alone and wouldn't quit. And so I started on the church staff in 2011, and served as our ministry director, Debbie Pell's assistant, for a few years, and then became a life group or a small group pastor, and then the director of small groups. So it's been an interesting journey.
So being in ministry, was it something you it sounds like it wasn't something you had a dream to do. You just kind of found yourself in it and then ended up going on full time because you found yourself in the middle of it.
It was never my dream job, but now that I'm in it, I can't imagine doing anything else. It was when I was a kid, I didn't aspire. I really wanted to be a school teacher or, one of those things that kids want to be. An astronaut. I wanted to be an astronaut for a little while. I haven't been to outer space yet, but
not yet.
But God really was building me even since when I was a little girl. I'm the oldest of four. So I've always been the leader and the one that kind of led the charge in many ways. My mom raised me and always said, you're the example, good or bad, you're the example. And still to this day, I'm still the example and lead in that way. But it was definitely not something that I was gung-ho about until I really started serving the Lord. I think that's the biggest thing is when I started serving the Lord, I started seeing my life unfold, all of the experiences that I've had, all of the trials that I had been through, all of my life circumstances led me to this place of being in ministry.
So very often people think that you get this blinding vision or you get a call from heaven or a moment when you knew you did it. But for you, it was more like an unfolding.
Oh, definitely. It was, to me, I love the verse that says, if you're faithful with the small, he will make you ruler over much. And that's the pinnacle part of that is to be faithful in the small. And so it was one day of obedience, one day of saying yes, one day. Debbie, my mentor, has led me in so many great conversations. And one of the things she said was, you just have to have a yes in your heart. And I think that's the biggest thing is you just have a yes in your heart. Who knows what God's going to do today? But if we just say, yes, God, here I am, your servant is listening, then that's where it takes off. And that's where it all can become what God has designed for our lives.
It's very similar to us.
Yeah.
I know for you, my mum, my co-host, again, never had a dream or a vision or a calling to do what we do, just found ourselves in the middle of it. And it was, just that constantly saying yes to the various opportunities that came along the way. So very similar to your story.
Yeah, in fact, there's a podcast people can go and see on the yes, isn't there?
Yes, a yes. I think it's called the yes culture or something like that. Yeah.
So it's pretty obvious to people listening that you're a woman and I'm a woman. And there's a lot
I'm not.
No, you're
Just
not.
Clarify.
And there's a lot of talk about women in ministry. And when I hear woman in ministry, I hear different tones of voice about it. I see different attitudes about it. I see people coming from different places. And it's almost become a quite complex topic. I mean, for me, well, anyway, not about me, this is about you. So talk to me about being a woman in ministry. What does it mean? What does it mean? Has it been easy? Has it been challenging? Just talk to me a bit about that journey.
Being a female leader is one of the most rewarding and challenging things from my perspective that you can do. It's very scary at times. You walk in when you're in a meeting and you're the only female in the room and the men are saying things that like, oh, this is what we're going to talk about in the sermon this weekend. And you're sitting there and you're thinking, I don't know how well that's going to be received by the females in the audience. And you are the one that sits there and you kind of hold your breath and finally you speak out and you hope that it's received or taken well. Females we can tend to be more emotional than men, or we can be blamed for more emotions. So A lot of times it's, if you're a male and you're leading, then you're leader. And then if it's a female and you're leading, you're bossy. And so it's very challenging because females, we want to lead well. And sometimes we should be leading with assertion and be able to speak our voice or our opinion, but a lot of times it's taken incorrectly and improperly. And so it's a fine line of walking in that way. And so I'm very blessed. The church that I serve on the staff, very supportive, empowering, don't look down. But I have so many friends. There's a group of women. If you're a female in ministry, there's a Facebook group called Ministry Chicks, and it's very helpful. But the women that write their stories of how they're treated or how they're paid less or how they're not given the credit that's due to them is just outstanding. Because to me, as the body of Christ, we should be cheering on everyone that's leading. We should be cheering on the men that are leading well and the women that are leading well and supporting each other and empowering each other, because ultimately this is about Jesus. This isn't about me. This isn't about you guys. This is about the message and ministry of Jesus Christ. And that's the thing that regardless of who's doing it or what gender they are, let's support and empower and encourage them.
And I think last time we were there, or around that time, you were hosting a lot of women from all over the US, I think, came to New Orleans, and you were involved with helping to serve them. And so I know that you're not just helping people locally, but you're also involved with helping to support women all across the US as well.
Yes. Debbie Pell, our executive director, is part of a group of executive women in the executive director roles at their churches. And so they came in and I had the opportunity to hear from them and get to talk to them. And it was so neat because it is a different role to be a female on the church staff. I mean, if you look at most church staff places are held by men. And a lot of times it's like, oh, you're a woman. Okay, so you serve in children's ministry. And okay. Or, oh, you're a female, so you must be an administrative assistant or some sort of secretary or something like that. And so it can be a place of confusion for women because we don't know really where do we stand and how do we fit, because there are also a lot of men that see female leaders as threatening.
Yeah.
And that's challenging.
Yeah. So have you found when you're talking to women on a wider scene, have you found a mix among it, or is there a predominant theme amongst them? Have you found it very mixed? Some are okay, some are not. What has been the overriding message you've had from them?
At most larger churches of women that I've talked to, they have more support from their pastors, but a lot of times smaller churches, the pastors are a little bit less secure, and so they're not as freely giving their say or their power or their or empowering the women, because they don't know for sure if their place is secure. And so anytime we walk in insecurity, we make bad choices and we don't help others to rise up because we're trying to maintain or hold our position. And so to me, as a female leader, that's the thing, that if we can help others to rise up, and that's one of the things that's so neat about the Executive Women Pastors Network, is that these ladies are challenging each other, pushing each other, educating each other, helping. And so I think that it's really a big deal to find a good support group and system.
You said earlier you're very blessed because at Celebration, the men leaders are empowering you, they're cheering you on, that they honour you. I have found personally that as a woman, that when a man releases us, that when a man supports us and cheers us on, that has a massive impact. And I think it has a massive impact spiritually as well as emotionally. What do you respond to that? Do you find that for yourself?
Oh, for sure. Knowing that our lead pastor trusts me and he trusts my opinion, that he trusts the other women that are on the staff, that he is not, that gives me courage to lead, to say what I think. That those first few meetings that I was in with the campus pastors, and I was the only woman in the room, it was nail biting. Do I say what I think, or do I just stay quiet? And now I feel like I can say what I think. I can have my own opinion. I can stand on it, and that he's going to support me. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is that when you know that your lead pastor is going to support you, then you have the courage to speak up, and you have the courage to lead. Because a lot of times there's a really great book by a lady named Katie Cole, and it's called Developing Female Leaders. And it's not about this is where women should be in the church. It's not about this is where women should stand. It's where does the church set the bar? Like, where do you say this is the farthest a female can go in leadership? And I think that lead pastors have to acknowledge this is as far as we want. We see that women are fit. Like, if it's they can't be the lead pastor, or they can't be a camp, or they can't, do anything other than children's ministry. But it's helping women, because what happens is when the male leader is not supporting a female leader, we're afraid to step into no man's land. We're afraid to step out. We're afraid to make choices. We're afraid to say to voice our opinion or our thoughts, because we don't know if they're going to support us and how far they'll support us. And so if you're a male or a pastor in leadership that's male, I would say read a book about developing women, because women have great ideas and great plans. And so when you can get behind them and support them and know how far they go in your church or in your ministry or in whatever it is, then go for it.
I mean, it's a bit like a marriage arrangement, as it were, a marriage relationship, because, the woman can be crushed by the husband, the woman can be kept down by the husband, his words impact her, those dynamics. It's very much the husband is the one that can really help the wife to fly and be all she wants to be. He can hold her in a hand and crush her, or he can release her to fly. And it's not the same, but it's very much that dynamic between a man and a woman that I hear is playing out from what you're saying.
Yes. And the other thing is your pastor, if you're a woman in ministry, your pastor is not just your boss. Your pastor is your pastor. So there's a whole nother dynamic. It's not if you're in the corporate world and you have a male as your boss, it's you see them as a spiritual authority in your life. And so when a pastor says, oh no, you're a woman, you can't do that, you almost hear it as in, oh, God is telling me I can't do that. And so that's the other challenge, is that what a male pastor and how they treat the women that are on their staff or on their team or as volunteers, that's how people see it as a spiritual authority in their life. And that's very challenging to me, because, man, I don't want to get to heaven and God say, that young lady really could have been something if you wouldn't have held her back.
Yeah.
You mentioned, defining the roles. So for pastors to be able to say to people, this is where we believe women can go, what they can do, and that whatever that is, whatever stage they see them being able to go at least it puts a foundation there for the women to be able to build on top of. So for you, how did that play out at Celebration? How did you find out what the foundation was that you could build on top of?
My mentor is the executive director, and she has blazed the trail. She has really, there's so many battles that I don't have to fight because she's fought them, and she has won some and lost some. And so really and truly, I would say as a female in ministry, find someone that's ahead of you, or find someone that's doing the role that you want to do, that you can kind of follow behind them, because it's challenging and it's hard to figure out and to find out what the roles are. Some churches don't want to say what they think, what the role is. And so when you're at a place where the pastor's like, well, just do what you can, or just do what you think, or we don't want to put a title on it or a name on it, it's a scary place to be, because you don't know. And a lot of churches don't want to say, this is what we think a female can do. So I would say the biggest thing is find someone that is blazing the trail and that you can kind of go behind them.
So let's flip it over a bit now, the other way. You're a woman working alongside men, working under, I don't mean under, but they're in authority over. What do you feel that you as a woman have to be careful of, be aware of, because you too as a woman have an effect on them as men? I mean, it's the whole thing playing out. It's this delicate relationship that God calls us to partner together and to be together, and he gave his boundaries, etc. So we can have an impact on the men we're working on. How have you had to develop that in yourself? What have you had to be careful on, or what mistakes, or what things we found work? Talk about it from the other way around.
Well, one is to show respect.
Right.
Because I think that when we as females dishonor or don't show respect to the males around us, then it leaves us to be dishonored ourselves. And so even if it's in a meeting and there someone of the opposite sex is saying something that's completely wrong, instead of going, well, you're ridiculous, or you're not making any sense, it's honoring that person and maybe talking to them about it after, or having those conversations. But the other thing is not seeing that they're not seeing things as a power struggle. I'm trying to think of how to say it in the right way, but it's not there. There is no power struggle in the kingdom of heaven. And I'm not fighting Andrew for power. I'm not trying to, get to this. I'm not trying to claw my way. That we have to see things. I have to see things from the biblical perspective, that maybe if I'm not getting the credit that's due, or if I'm being mistreated, God sees all that, and he's going to rectify it, and he's going to make it better. And so not trying to get in the mix of some sort of power struggle, I think, is important. Thirdly, I would say treat each male on your team or on your staff or whoever it is as your brother, and not losing sight of that. I mean, just talking it real simply, like most of the pastors are married. And so you want to make sure that you are friends with their wives, that you're doing things like, we don't need to text each other at 10 o'clock at night. And we don't need to, send emails, make sure that everything's above board. One of the things at Celebration is that there's a window in every office, because male and female, we meet together. We'll meet individually, but there's a window there to keep everyone safe and to keep everything above board. And I think that that's so important, is knowing that, hey, this pastor is my brother. And so I'm going to do anything that I can to protect him and his integrity. And I believe he's going to do the same for me.
Mm.
So that is brilliant. That is a lot of good advice there. And I know that isn't just advice, it's experience that you have lived out and that you have learned along life's way. So what would you say to women listening, and maybe they're not in ministry, although I hate that phrase, we're all in ministry. I mean, we are all, if you're in the office, if you're in the home, if you're in the school, you are in ministry. So, yes. But in the way that we use it, let's just refer to it. And they're thinking, I'd really like to move into an area of ministry. What would you say to them when they're looking and going, but I'm a woman and this feels scary and I don't know whether I should, whether I could. What would you say to them if they were sitting in front of you?
Say yes. See if the Lord is calling you to lead a small group or a life group or a cell group or whatever you want to call it. But say yes to the things that are being put in front of you, and take those little steps at a time, The other thing is find some other strong females around you that can help encourage you, because there's going to be some bad days where you go, oh man, it stinks to be a female today, or, it's really hard in this role or this place that the Lord's put me. But put yourself around some other women that they can cheer you on and help you feel empowered, especially if you're on like a smaller church staff that maybe you're the only female there. The other thing is ask for opportunities. As females, so many times we sell ourselves short and we don't ask for the opportunities that we see ahead of us, that, hey, if there's a project or an event or something that you think you could do, or ask for it. And men are much better at self-promotion than females are. As females, a lot of times we think, oh, I can't post this on social media that I did this podcast because that looks like I'm trying to, shout out my name from the rooftop. But a male will say, oh, check out my cool podcast. And so it's very interesting. But sometimes we have to talk to other females that will say, no, you post that, you do that, you promote what the Lord is doing in your life. And so I would say the biggest thing is just having a heart or finding other women that have that heart that will encourage you and not hold you back from it.
Of course, because there are other women watching that woman. Yes. And if they see her holding back and not, that it's going to hold other women back. I mean, I'm not talking about consciously, even subconsciously. And as you step out, then they will step out. So I'll give you something from my own experience, because obviously I'm a woman in ministry. And I will say I have been the first woman in many churches. Haven't found out in the pulpit.
In the pulpits, yeah.
In the pulpit, I've been the first one in many.
We've even been to some churches where they've wanted you to speak, but they didn't want her to stand on the stage behind the pulpit. So they pulled the pulpit off and put it on the floor so she could speak from the floor, just not on the stage. Technicality.
Yeah.
You are a trailblazer.
But others I've been on it and I haven't realised till afterwards they've never had a woman speak there.
Yeah.
And I do things like you know me well enough. I'm a, you would call it pants, we call it slacks person. And, trousers, whatever. And I carry one skirt around with me everywhere. I think I've had the same skirt maybe for 20 odd years in my suitcase. And I always say to the pastor's wife, is it going to offend if I don't wear a skirt on the platform?
You used to. We don't do it so much. The times have changed a bit on that front.
They have changed.
But you do still carry the skirt around with you.
Because I don't want to offend people that they're looking at me, why isn't she wearing a skirt, and not hearing the message. So there are things that historically I've had to navigate without backing down, but trying to honour, ask questions, not be presumptive, not think, oh, well, they won't want me, take checks and balances along the way. Because I think, I would say from my experience and probably from yours too, the more we can honour, the more we can in a godly way submit, the more we can listen, and the more we can wear a skirt if they want me to wear a skirt, the more freedom that we get for ourselves and the more freedom we get for others around us. And
it often opens up more doors when they realise that they've been able to trust you with one thing. It then opens the door to something else, and gradually, you work your way through. So
instead of being a woman that's just going to go in and be offended and all the rest of it, if we can navigate these things with honour and with respect, it brings the barriers down. Would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. And I would say even one step further is that by you doing that, those pastors and church leaders are going to trust the next female that comes along.
Yes.
Because you've opened that door for them and you've broken through. And so every time as a female that we can show honor and respect, that we can submit to the authority that's over us, that we can walk in a godly way, then the female behind us is going to have another opportunity or more opportunities because of women like you.
Yeah. And I think very often that the pastor probably has experience of women that have just pushed their way in. Now, I want to say they've probably had experience of men who've done that too, but we'll just deal with this from a woman's perspective because that's what we're doing. And so they've been hurt. And they've had these bad experiences because, we know that women can speak far quicker than men. We know things can come out of our mouth very quickly. And so, they have probably been hurt by women wanting to be. And so in honouring them, we need to honour their journey and probably be healing in their lives too and in their ministries.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
Yeah?
For sure. I think when men can learn how, I don't know about you, but I didn't ever really learn how to relate to the opposite sex because my dad he wasn't there all the time. And so that's the same thing with men, is that maybe they didn't learn how to relate to the opposite sex. And so I think that we all have to know that we're on a learning curve. We're learning how to communicate with each other. We're learning how to trust each other. We're learning how to grow in the Lord together. And so the more that we can do that and offer grace, offer that grace, and just instead of thinking offense, think, no, I'm going to pour grace in this situation and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. So let's take it slightly other. We are not a minister. You are not a pastor. You are a woman who God created you to be a woman and to be secure in who you are as a woman. You don't have to compete with the men. You don't have to try and be like the men, because God wants to bring into the ministry the beauty of who you are as a woman. And so, maybe, and tell me what you think about this, but at the heart of it is this being secure as women, to be secure in the beauty of God, to be, to be secure in that is going to help as we go along, because we're not getting our value, we're not getting our womanhood from what we do, we're not having to prove that as a woman we can do this. We're secure in who we are as women.
Yes. And I think the more that we can be secure as women, the better we'll be in our roles. Because I can't fill the male pastor's roles. They have things that God has called them to do. Well, guess what? I have things that God's called me to do. I love the verse, and it says that I think it's either a scripture or somebody says it, but it's that God doesn't call, he equips the called, not calls the equipped. And I think that's the whole thing about this, is that he didn't call me because I was equipped. Yeah. He equipped me because he called me. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm his servant and his vessel, and he's got to give me the things that I need. He's got to give me the voice that I need, the authority that I need, the wisdom that I need every day. And so as a female, I have to know it's okay. It's okay as females that we're going to mess up sometimes. We're going to fail. I know a lot of times as female leaders, we beat ourselves up so much for, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have done it this way. I wish I would have, and we overthink and overguess. But those are the pitfalls that we can get stuck in that will hold us back. And at the end of the day, failure is an option. It's okay to fail, whether we're male or female. Failure is okay. We're not perfect. We're not always going to hit the mark. We're not always going to hit the bullseye. But if we get up and we keep trying, we keep following the Lord, then that's what we have to do as female or male leaders. We have to know that God is equipping us each and every day.
Mm. Yeah, we did an article last month, I think, which was on this failure subject, and saying to people, actually, we're not talking about sin stuff, but encouraging people to go out and fail, because it's by failing that you grow, that you learn what to do next time. And so, yeah, like you're saying, for women and men, but for the women listening, don't be scared to fail. In a weird kind of way, we want to encourage you to go out and fail, because it means you are going out and attempting to do things. So, but I like that you brought that up.
So I'm going to go in another area. This is really cool, because I'm just dipping into different areas as I think of them. So women are emotional beings, right? We can show our emotions very quickly. Men, I believe they have emotions, but they hold them in their little box and they don't just spill out all the time.
No, we have a box, but nothing goes in that box. It's a blank box that we have.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Everything else goes on outside that box, but we have a blank box.
All right. Well, we don't have any blank boxes. I mean, they are full of emotions. Have you got any experiences? And this is probably just dipping into places where you have had emotions and you've been in this room with all these male pastors and they haven't had any, and you have had to navigate that. Do tell us about it.
Oh gosh. Well, I will tell you this one. It was really funny. So I had a coach for a little while, a couple of years ago, and it's when I was transitioning between direct reports. And so it was very emotional for me because, when you're transitioning with bosses, it's, they're different, they have different things. And so I was telling my coach, I said, I met with so-and-so and I cried. And then we met again and I cried again. And so finally my female coach, she says, stop it. Do not cry when you're in a meeting with them anymore. And I was seeing my meeting with him as like a therapy session of me like sharing my feelings. And this poor guy that's super introverted and doesn't know what to do, is just looking at me. And so I had to go, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. And so that was really funny. But now that I look back on it, I was trying to process through the changes that were taking place in the transitions. And apparently I thought he was like my therapist and he was working through me with my issues. And there have been a couple of times where there have been, and a lot of times we think of emotions as tears, but sometimes emotions can be anger. Sometimes emotions can be fear or frustration. There's a lot of different emotions. And so there have been plenty of times where I've been doing something and I have felt that fear or that anger and just trying to process through it when I'm leading a meeting where the majority of the people in the room are men. And so I've tried to learn how to curb my sad emotions and only use them on special occasions when I'm really trying to make a point. Because, one time there was something that some of them were supposed to do and didn't get it done. And it really impacted everything negatively. And I was really sad. I was really genuinely sad. And so I my eyes filled up with tears and I was like, and y'all didn't do it. So now we don't have this, whatever it was, and you can see them all sitting there going, how quickly can I get out of this room right now with this lady? And so as a female leader, I would say, don't be afraid to show your emotions, but also don't overshow your emotions.
Be appropriate.
Because yes. And just use wisdom and, don't think of the people that you're meeting with as your therapist.
That is fantastic. You're unpacking that. And I mean, you could not have said this at the beginning of your journey, could you? I mean, this is a learning curve you've had to go on to stay being a woman, and God gave us these emotions and he gave that and used them when it's appropriate. But I love that. He wasn't my therapist. I shall remember that. That is just absolutely brilliant. So I've been in many situations. I mean, we do a lot of pastors and leaders conferences where the room is full of literally thousands of pastors. And
of men.
Yeah, men. I mean, mostly men.
Yeah.
And I have found that by God trusting me to be in that position means that as a lifestyle, I need to have a position of honor of men, of honor of them as pastors, whatever pastor that I meet, that I keep my heart honoring them and in a godly way submitted to them, because I think God can only trust us to be in this position amongst all these men, amongst these pastors and all the rest of it, if he can trust our hearts as a lifestyle, not just in the moment. Do you agree?
Oh, definitely. Especially like for you guys, you're going to another church and that pastor is lending you their authority.
Yes.
They're saying to the people that are there, you can trust this person because you trust me. And I think that as female leaders, it's the same exact thing. If you're serving on a church staff, that your senior pastor or your lead pastor or whoever you serve under, they're lending you their authority. And they're saying, hey, listen to this person because you listen to me. And that we have to show that total honor and total respect because they're lending us something, and they're lending us their influence. And that is the best way that we can repay them is to respect and honor them.
I love that. They're lending you their authority. That is a brilliant way to put it. There's some little phrases I've got from you as we've gone along that I think I'm going to quote at times, and
we'll take it and act like it's ours.
I'll take it the credit. but it's true. So as we bring this to a close, Michelle, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you would say? Because bear in mind, people are listening to this all over the world. There's men listening and there's women listening. There's teenagers listening. So is there anything else that you would say, you think afterwards, I wish I had said that about being a woman in ministry?
If you're a male listening, I would say find some strong, courageous women around you, because they have so much to offer. And if you've been holding them back because of yourself, then let them loose. Let them loose and see what God does and see what God has. And I would say, if you are a female and you are either in ministry currently, or if you're struggling with and thinking about it, do it and be brave and be bold and be courageous, because gosh, you don't know what's on the other side. Everything in my life over the past 19 years that has led to where I am now, it wasn't easy. It was a struggle. It was a journey. It was lots of failures and mistakes, lots of successes, lots of, hard moments. But I would say step out and do it, because you don't want to get to the end of your life and go, man, I really wish I could have done this.
Yeah.
And I think my last word as a woman would be, if something goes wrong or you get hurt, don't automatically assume it's because you're a woman.
Right.
Because it could have happened to a man, and it could be, I think we go into, it's because I'm a woman mode. Don't make that assumption.
Right. No, the men make mistakes as well. Sometimes, not as often, but we do make mistakes sometimes. Michelle, thank you so much. We appreciate you. We love you and your family. Hopefully we can start traveling again and we get to come back to New Orleans and see you. But thank you for taking the time and coming to talk to us.
Yes, what a blessing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If it inspired you, please rate us and subscribe on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or another podcast platform.